welcome to you. Today we are doing our final devotion on Ruth. We are looking at our fifth. Hi, Zoe. We are looking at our final habit this day of becoming people who quitting. And so I want to invite you to join me in that. I may have to pick up Zoe here. We'll see how this all works. All righty. So today our passage that we are looking at is Ruth 4:1-22. Ruth 4:1-22. So I invite you to join me in that. And we will begin now. Here we go. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along, Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here." And they did so. And then he said to the kinsman redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you. And I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. And then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi and from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." At this, the kinsman redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people. One moment. Come here. Let's read the Bible together, Zoe. There we go. Let's read the Bible, okay? So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have brought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are my witnesses." Then the elders and all those at the gate said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you have standing, May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. And through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive. And she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel." He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." And then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, and cared for him. And the women living there said, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. And this then is the family line of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram, Ram the father of Aminadab, Aminadab the father of Nahshon, Nahshon the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz, Boaz the father of Obed, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. Friends, this is the word of the Lord as commentated by Zoe. Thanks be to God. You know, the habit we're talking about today, the 5th habit we're talking about being people who quit quitting, is moving forward in faith. Moving forward in faith. Now, when we talk about moving forward or getting things done, if you're like me, a lot of times you want to do something. You want to get your toolkit out and start putting things together and making it happen. But moving forward in faith can sometimes mean standing still. It's hard to do that. It is so hard to wait. Right now, we are in a time where we are sitting still. We're doing that because that's what love looks like right now. To care for another is to wait this out in our own homes. So, what does moving forward in faith look like for Ruth and Naomi and Boaz? What do you think it looks like? Huh? Ruth has to wait. She's gone to Boaz. She has met him on the threshing floor. Boaz has come up with this plan. And now she has to wait. She has no idea if it's going to work, and neither does Boaz, and neither does Naomi. But she has to wait, and so does Naomi. So Boaz first goes to the gate, and you'll notice he sits down and he waits. He figures out what he's going to do first. He figures out his plan, and then he goes into action. He waits first, and then he goes. He calls together the elders. Oh, so. Oh, brother. Oh, I am going to wait on you, Lord, during this devotional time as you lead us through this here. How about we play with your unicorn? It's Judy. Boaz goes and gathers the elders together. Hang on. Oh, let's try this. All right, friends. I'm going to walk around with the little girl today. So Boaz gathers the elders at the gate. He does it transparently. He doesn't manipulate the situation for what he wants. He doesn't try to make it happen in the way he thinks. He gathers the elders and he trusts God in the middle of it. You know, Boaz says to the kinsman redeemer, here's the offer. Here's what you can do. And at first, the kinsman redeemer is very interested. If it's about lands, he's very interested in acquiring more lands. But the minute that Boaz tells him that he'll have to take on another wife, the kinsman redeemer decides not to. And so Boaz has figured out his plan. He has waited on the Lord, and now he is going to redeem it. And so they do this funny little tradition where they take off their sandal and they hand it to another. That's what signing a contract looks like back in the day. And so they go ahead and they do that. They had faith in the midst of this for the impossible. What seems impossible to you today? What seems like if God worked for you, that would almost be impossible for him to do right now. He's in the business of doing the impossible. He called unlikely people to his work. If you think about Moses, Moses actually doesn't speak very well. He had a speech impediment, and Moses actually said to the Lord, I don't think you should use me to lead your people from Egypt. And God said, no, I choose you. David was the runt of the group of brothers, and yet God chose him. What seems impossible or unlikely that God would use you in today? And what do you have faith for him to do today? What would it look like for you to move forward in faith today with God? Now, Ruth gets noticed as this happens. She's been noticed by all the townspeople for her character. She's been noticed by the townspeople for her nobleness, as she has taken care of Naomi in the process and followed the customs. But even in this moment, the elders come around Boaz and they speak a blessing over him. And they speak about Ruth, whom they have noticed. And they say to Boaz, may she bless your household like Leah and Rachel. Now, let me put this into context. Leah and Rachel together had 13 children. 13. That's a lot of kids. That is a lot of kids. And so they are speaking a blessing over Boaz. And they said, may she fill your home. May your family be great. Now, here's where Boaz had trusted God for the impossible. Boaz was older in age. We heard that in our passage on Tuesday. He was older in age. And Boaz had pretty much decided he was going to work his land, take care of his workers, but he had almost given up hope on having a family. He would go to bed at night on the threshing floor. He was not out looking for a wife. He was concentrated on his farm, his land. And so here Boaz is redeemed, where he gave up hope of ever having children, of ever having a wife. Here God gives it back to him, and in a very powerful way. This isn't just any ordinary redemption. This is a redemption that is a piece of the redemption of all humanity. That's what makes this story so profound. Ruth and Boaz come together, they conceive, and they have a son, and they name the son Obed. They name the son Obed, and Naomi holds the son in her arms, and the women talk a blessing over Naomi about how she is redeemed in this process. I can't help but apply my own personal experience at this moment when I think of Naomi and what she must have felt and looked like in that moment. In our own family, my mother-in-law had given up ever having grandkids. Life just did not turn out that way for her children, and she had given up. My husband and I have been struggling to have kids. And the day that we conceived Zoe and then had her and she was born, I still remember the joy and the glory I saw in my mother-in-law's face. It was like nothing I had ever experienced. She was so happy, and so much joy was pouring out from every bit of her being. The blessing that it was that day. I imagine that's how Naomi was in that moment. She had given up all hope. She had gone into despair and bitterness. Naomi could not see any way forward until she understood God in her midst with Boaz and Ruth. And in this moment, Naomi isn't just given a son, she's given a grandson. She's given a lineage again. She is given something that she can look at and say, see what God has done in my midst. For Ruth and for Boaz, theirs goes on to become a story of loyalty to royalty. Ruth's loyalty to Naomi, it's not something that she did because she owed it to Naomi. It's not something she did because it was a custom. She did it just out of her own nobility and character. She truly reflected God in that midst and did what she felt was right. in this lineage from Obed all the way down. It says Obed was the father of Jesse, who was the father of David. And David's lineage is that of the king of Israel. When we trace that lineage all the way down, Christ is born into the house of David. In fact, this lineage that comes from Ruth and Boaz traces all the way down to Joseph, the father of Jesus. And it's by that he is royalty. He is the king of the Jews. And even more so, his sacrifice brings you and I into this line of royalty, because it's by Jesus' sacrifice on the cross that we are born into the family of God by adoption. We are adopted in by his blood, by God's grace, into this family, this lineage, even of Ruth and Boaz. Friends, I want to encourage you as you go about your day today, as you go about the weekend to come, as you set out tasks in yourself to do, as you set out faith steps forward that might even include just simply waiting. I encourage you, don't quit. Follow through in your faith with the Lord. Accept that assignment of refinement. Follow through no matter how you feel. Stay open to the movement of God. And give others what you need as we move forward together in faith. Friends, it's been a joy to share this devotion with you, to go through the book of Ruth with you. I invite you to join me again on Sunday at 11 a.m. for our worship together here. Say hi, Zoe. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.